Shabbat Shalom. The story goes that the great 19th century master of Musar, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, was speaking with one of his students, and Rav Salanter posed a number of questions to the student about challenging Talmudic passages, asking about specific midot, specific attributes. And the all too self-satisfied student bragged to his rabbi that he really knows his stuff. He said, reportedly, something along the lines of, "You can't stump me, Rabbi. After all, I've been through the Talmud 7 times. To which Rav Salanter replied, "That is all well and good, but how many times has the Talmud been through you?" I love this story because it perfectly demonstrates one of the most crucial elements of Jewish learning. That is, Jewish learning should be transformative in some way. The learner should be transformed by their new understanding. As our tradition holds, there is, without question, a great merit in pursuit of Torah lishma, Torah learning for its own sake. Though perhaps even greater is the pursuit of Jewish learning that we might transform and grow, that we might elevate ourselves and those around us because what we have learned has changed us. And this week, as we turn once again to Parshat Ki Tisa, when Moses comes down Mount Sinai for the second time, we learn that his face is radiant. He had horns of light emanating from his head. For 40 days and 40 nights, as he was receiving the law, he did not eat food. Moses did not drink water. Some say that Moses did not sleep. What was it like for him up there? What did he see and feel during this intense period at God's side? The Torah only records snippets, a moment where God passes in front of Moses' face. The Midrash suggests a few vignettes that Moses watched God placing the crowns on the letters of the Torah, saw the Jewish future. Maimonides imagines Moses acquiring true knowledge, suddenly enlightened by philosophical and scientific truth about how the world was kept in order. But we, the readers of Parshat Ki Tisa, we have to speculate. It's not just because the Torah is sparse in its descriptions of this encounter, but because whatever happened on Mount Sinai must have defied explanation. It was a period of complete solitude, a time when nobody else was there to corroborate events, a time of deep spiritual introspection. Moses saw something, and what he saw he could not fully communicate. So the only real evidence of Moses' experience was how it transformed him. Set aside the commandments and the miracles, Moses himself was both internally and externally changed by the experience at Sinai. Everyone could see that from now on his face shone with rays of light. And likewise, as we inch closer to 2 years of COVID lockdowns, isolations, and restrictions, we find that this experience may have changed us forever. In fact, our last Shabbat together before the initial lockdowns in March of 2020 fell on Parshat Ki Tisa. And I've been doing some reflecting on the last 2 years, and if you are like me, I believe that it is going to be challenging. It is going to be hard to explain afterwards what really happened over the past few years. Perhaps we will remember echoes of the rituals that sustained us, honking and clapping for caregivers and at designated hours. There were Zoom services and seders and shivas and baby namings, strange Netflix shows, In my house, maybe a bit too much bread making. But when future generations ask us what this historical moment was like, we might struggle to give a clear answer. Our experiences have been far from uniform. Some have shielded at home for the entirety of the 2 years, only seeing a small circle, if that. Others have gone to work in essential services, but nevertheless unable to visit friends or family. Some have traveled and explored the great outdoors. Some have had to learn how to homeschool children. Others have been prevented from meeting the new arrival of children, grandchildren, nieces, and nephews. And each individual's experience likely shifted radically within the 2 years, taking different styles and approaches of precaution in between the ebb and flows of variance and waves. And so when we finally do emerge, as we feel this sense of emerging really this week, I suspect that we will struggle to explain, even to each other, what this experience was like. As we allow ourselves to become hopeful once again that the end of lockdown is here, I wonder how we would be different as individuals and as a community. Rabbi Spolansky spoke about this a bit last night as well. Will we be more focused on family? Will we be keener to befriend strangers? Will we live carefree or with more caution? Will we focus more on communal life or more on ourselves as individuals? Will we feel closer to God or further away? These are not questions anyone can answer for anyone else. They are the product of an individual soul searching. And the time has arrived for us to ask the question, who will we be now? Only we can determine how we will transform and how our faces will shine. Before Moses had this transformative experience on Mount Sinai, he dealt with the crushing blow of his people worshiping a golden idol. Yet even after the grave sin of the golden calf, Moses ascends the mountain and pleads with God to forgive the Jewish people. And in fact, after God agreed not to destroy the nation, Moses takes it one step further and asks God to give the Jewish people a way to obtain mercy should they fall again in the future. And God agrees with Moses and tells him to wait on a mountain and behold God's glory. And then God passes before Moses and proclaims the verses that are known as the Midot HaRachamim, the 13 attributes of mercy. As it is written in Exodus 34, 6 and 7, Adonai passed before him and proclaimed, Adonai, Adonai, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, preserving loving kindness for thousands, forgiving iniquity, rebellion, and sin, and God pardons. Sounds familiar, no? When sung in Hebrew, I would venture to say that these verses are quite familiar to many of us. Those at Torah study this morning had the pleasure of listening to our cantor emeritus, Benny Meisner, chant the haunting tune at a Slichot service not so many years ago. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, Erech Alpaim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet. And so it goes. The importance of these verses is underscored by the role they play in our prayer services. Every fast day, an opportune time to repent. This prayer is recited at Slichot, and most telling of all, it is how often it is sung during the Ne'ilah service on Yom Kippur, the holiest moments of the holiest day of the year. Some commentaries believe that just mentioning the attributes of mercy and prayer alone has the power to influence God to grant forgiveness and mercy. However, most commentaries on the Talmud, most mystical and Kabbalistic thinkers believe and explain that God is not asking us to just say words, but rather asking to imitate God's actions. Just as God is merciful, so should we be merciful. Just as God is kind, so too should we be kind. When Moses boldly asks God, panim el panim, face to face, these are the words that accompanied his indescribable moment of revelation. It is after Moses receives this instruction and hears these words that he descends the mountain and that his physical and internal transformations take hold. He has learned something, and it changes him. Rav Salanter challenged his students, saying, "You have been through the text 7 times. How many times has the text been through you?" A soul-stirring question to ponder. Why do we do what we do? Why study Torah? Why come to services and pray? Many of us have been through the Siddur countless times. We know the words. We know the melodies. We know many melodies. We know the meaning. But this Shabbat, I ask not how many times have you been through these pages, but how many times these prayers have truly been through us. If you are interested in some truly transformative Jewish learning, I want to invite you to join Rabbi Spolansky and Cantor Rosen on Thursday afternoons for their new 3-part course entitled Revolutionary Prayer. The first of the 3 sessions took place this past Thursday, but I understand that it was recorded, so you can still join and have access to that first session. I believe we're not meeting this Thursday, and then the following 2 Thursdays we'll be joining back together. So I hope that you will join them on this incredible spiritual journey as they unlock the door to prayer. You will not only gain a better understanding of the liturgy, but you will leave with a new and inspired approach to prayer. There's no prior experience or knowledge of Hebrew that is necessary. Just bring your open mind and embrace transformative learning. I'd like to conclude with the poetic words of Rabbi Sonja K. Pills, who wrote this beautiful prayer for Parshat Ki Tisa. God of change, we are afraid to look straight into your face. We are afraid you might not care all too much about our feelings. We are gathered once again on Zoom, together, separate, maybe more connected to each other than to the people we once were. Many of us still remember the lives we led before COVID-19. Many of us look back and are baffled by how much has changed. We moved. We met new people. We eat different foods. We live through different days. Babies were born. People were married. Others got sick. Some even died. Will we one day go back to what was? We won't. Will we still find points of connection to the people we were before? We can't be sure. God of change, it is hard to accept that you are too a God of perfection and a God of shleimut, of wholeness. We can only look at you with tears in our eyes, hoping that being here together in a moment of connection, we find a way to be together, becoming here. Shabbat Shalom.